All right, next thing we want to do here is go through the writing expectations and assessment, or what I call the TRI method of writing. First off, we want to do active learning in the assessment. So for that reason, you're going to have open response questions, meaning I'm going to ask you what, why, and how you want to do things. The answers must be all of a high quality to get all of the points. And I'll go into that with the TRI here. Again, the reason we're doing open response questions is we want to make sure that you're actively learning and what you can do with this knowledge and apply it versus just learn something and spit it back out. So the responses are reflections of how you're going to lead or be a coach. So with that being said, I say this all the time, the assignments are not essays, but they're portfolios, and I'll go next into exactly what I mean by a portfolio. The reason we're doing this, again, essays, they only measure what you know, where a portfolio tells us how you're going to apply the research, the information that you've learned. Assignments, again, one more time, all scaffold towards a final portfolio. So the harder you work on those and the improvements you make from week to week on the individual assignments, the better your final portfolio will be. So what is a coaching portfolio, or what is the final project? Again, it's kind of a working resume versus an essay. It's a tool that's going to combine or provide an insight to a potential employer, what you would be like as a leader, as a coach, or as a person. If you think of it from artwork, someone would bring in their art to show what their works are, and that's basically what I want you to do when you're designing your final portfolio. Is this kind of a work of art and show me the different bits and pieces of what make you a qualified leader and coach. It should be a direct reflection then of your philosophies, not mine, not someone else's. You can use the information to support why you're doing what you're doing, but I want you to come up with your own individual philosophy. It should look at how you're going to build your program and design it as a head coach. It also is going to demonstrate some of the ways you're going to go about that. So the illustrations that you do for each area are very important to show and give examples of how you would actually apply these philosophies. And then again, the format needs to be in a bold kind of type. You need to follow the rubrics. Don't get cute and change the format. They're set up for a reason, and it makes the assessment better anyway. You must use headers then with each of the sections. That's part of the mechanics with the rubrics, and that makes it easy on the eyes, and again is more of a resume layout than an essay itself. So TRI, and this is the key to the writing component in the expectations and assessment. T stands for a thesis statement. That's you're telling us what you're going to do. The R is the reinforcement or the reference to support it, why you're doing what you're doing. So it's not just an opinion or a crazy idea. And then I is the illustration, how you're going to actually implement or apply this theory along with the research you've gained, how you're going to do it. So that's TRI, thesis, reinforce or reference, and then illustration. So how do we do all this? First off, a thesis, what is it? It's your statement. It's your position. So it needs to get your main point across. It does not have to be a long paragraph. But again, it can be in a sentence and get right to what you're doing. You can go ahead and then use additional sentences or bullet points to build upon the main theme there. But again, that's what you should start with. It kind of announces what you're going to do, provides your viewpoint, and it should be the direction you want to go with things. Now again, if you don't support that with a reference or you don't give an illustration, then it's just an opinion statement, and we need to have thesis statements, all right? So ideally you sum it up in one sentence, and it's best to start with thesis. The way to design these is sometimes it's best to work in reverse. I know this isn't the most efficient way for you as students, but the best is actually to go get research, whether it's through the lectures, and that's the idea of it. That's a starting point along with the readings, and then you go find your own additional information. And that starts to shape the position you want to take. So you want to kind of keep an open eye, and you may change from what you had from your own personal experiences, and that's great. But then you can go ahead and pick out the references that support your position, and then again need to put an illustration of how you're going to apply it, not the way your research applied it or the individual did that. So it's real important here at the end, after you've written it, sometimes you get off in these tangents and you need to make sure you go back and that you're actually answering the question that was asked on the rubric and following and that it fits. One last piece with that then, can your thesis change as we go through the course? Yes, and actually I hope it does. What you write as your first philosophy and your first definition of leadership and ethics, I hope that evolves and grows and changes as we get to the final project. So again, the test is this. It should be easy to pick out the thesis statements because again, we have a header and then you're going to give your position for each of those. It should have some stickiness to it. So in coaching, there's a lot of times we'll use acronyms or illustrations or pictures to help show and explain. That's great. And then last, remember the TRR method you do have to have after the thesis statement, your position, after you've supported it with a credible reference and cited that correctly, then it's really important to give a concrete example or illustration of how you would apply that. And this is where the templates come in. A template ends up being basically a grid, as you'll see, that will give you shorthand for your own way of communicating and illustrating. You just need to describe some of the ways you're going to do that. But that gives a great illustration in the TRI method. All right? Hopefully this helps out. If you go to Canvas, you're going to see where it has writing templates and tools, and this will be there once again along with some other referencing pieces as well as the templates. Good luck.